All right. This is my first chapter of The Alchemy of Love and Lust by Teresa Crenshaw. It's something I've been promising to do. I've actually gave a partial intro to it on my Hangouts. And for my fans that actually follow me, fans or students or whatever you want to call yourself, this is probably the best book I've ever read on women. Believe it or not. I mean, of all the books I've ever read on women, this is probably the top book that I've ever read on it. So if you really want to understand women, this is the one you start with, in my opinion, because this all not only helps men understand women, but it also really helps women understand themselves, because it talks about the hidden side of her hormones that are interacting. Now, she doesn't really go into psychology or even anthropology, what's going on in the past. She gets directly to the hormones that drive us that we're unaware of, and what causes these hormones to actually come to the surface and actually secrete. So it almost reads like a chemistry book, which is why most people don't understand it. And the people that do, that actually stuck with it and actually read the book, it's a classic because it's still out there today. Even though I think she's been dead like 10 years. But without further ado, we're just going to dive into this. The first chapter is sexual cycles. There's actually a introduction to this, and she goes through a lot of examples from literature, but we're not going to, there's so many, I'm not going to really deal with them. I'm not really going to read them. I'm just going to go straight into the meat. And if you really want to read all the extra stuff, you can. All right, check in your breath. Do these words move you, provoke you, perhaps transport you? Do you detect any subtle physical changes? A faster pulse, some deeper breaths, an involuntary sigh. Publishers of romance novels have built a multi-billion-dollar industry by stirring up your hormones. Romantic arousal, no matter what the source, does things to your body. This is for white folks. Your skin flushes, heat spreads, your heartbeat quickens, your state of consciousness alters ever so subtly. When a steamy sex scene arouses you, or a love story melts you, when your insides do somersaults the moment you encounter that certain someone, it's all chemical warfare. The army has engaged. Your every move is made up of hormones and other chemicals that have been deployed in your bloodstream, each patrolling and expanding its territory. But just as our hormones can bring us together to love, marry, and bear children, they can trick us into doing some pretty wild things. Who hasn't made a bad sexual choice, behaved in the most uncharacteristic, perhaps bizarre way, made a fool of themselves over someone who wasn't worth the trouble? Actions you wouldn't even confide to your closest, most trusted friend. Behavior you don't want to be reminded of. A cell phone call you promise yourself not to make, an irresistible affair, a foolish marriage, a one-night stand with a complete stranger, irrational jealousy, spying on someone. The most normal people sometimes behave in the most abnormal way. It couldn't be you or the person you once believed yourself to be. And then she's going to go into a story. You can read the stories on your own. I'm not really going to do it because the book is full of them. I think the book is full of them. Women like stories, so we're not going to really read stories. You're going to get into the meat, because if not, the book will be very long. Now and then, otherwise reasonable men and women get ambushed by forces so powerful they submit to impulses they never dreamed they would have, much less act on. Intoxicated by mysterious forces, would you succumb to your chemistry? Not you. Don't be so sure. Much like alcohol, sexual arousal impairs your judgment. In fact, the mix of the two can often override your common sense. If you happen to be one of those precious few who have escaped such compelling experiences, surely you would have heard such stories about a friend who, swept by hormonal surprise, turned into someone that neither of you recognize. The fact is, when you fall in love or in lust, it isn't merely an emotional event. Your various hormones, each with unique features to contribute to get in bed with you too. In a way, it's as if there were a corporate decision going on here, with each chemical casting its vote. You may just find yourself outnumbered. Okay, this is, in fact, I need to start taking my DHEA again. There is more DHEA in your body, whether you are a male or female, than any other hormone. It bosses us around without reservation. I call it the mother of all hormones because most of our other sex hormones are derived from it, produced by various enzymes acting on the DHEA molecule. In a sense, it tells you when you can and can't have sex. If animal studies hold true for us, then DHEA is involved in your sex drive, your orgasm, and your sex appeal. Oral contraceptives lower DHEA, which might cause you to wonder why they really work. Pheromones. Pheromones are derived from DHEA. These are sexual signals transmitted from one individual to another through scent. In the animal world, sexual pheromones dictate courting and mating. There is no such conscious choice involved. In humans, this hormone may influence who you choose as your mate through its subliminal effect on your sexual sense. DHEA has a particular maternal mode. Through the combination of smell, DHEA, and touch, oxytocin, more about this in a minute, babies bond to their mothers. Let me repeat that. Through the combination of smell and touch, babies bond to their mothers and others after birth. Get this oxytocin especially is what? A bonding hormone. DHEA's favorable association with sex drive in women was demonstrated in a Crenshaw Clinic research protocol in 1984. Increased levels of DHEA were associated with increased sexual desire. Oxytocin is a marvelous molecule influencing our life through touch. It is a crucial bonding agent for relationships. Think of it as hormonal superglue. If someone holds your hand, your oxytocin levels will rise. If that someone happens to be a person you care for, just thinking about him or her will cause your oxytocin levels in your bloodstream to go up. That's called addiction, folks, for anybody that's wondering. Actually, touching will make them surge even higher. So I tell players, if you're going to make an orgasm, you got to get up. Because after orgasm, this is going to flow. Oxytocin bonds and attaches us to those we love, or perhaps causes us to love those it bonds us to. Mates, family, friends, babies. It is deeply involved in parenting behaviors, causes contractions of the uterus during childbirth and orgasm, reduces stress, and most importantly, it keeps us in touch with each other. Curiously enough, it also makes us forgetful and diminishes our capacity to think and reason. Next is PHEA, phenylethylamine. better known as the molecule of love. PEA is a romantic in you. When you're walking on air, singing out loud, and euphorically in love, PHA is probably at work. PEA is a naturally occurring amphetamine-like substance that makes you feel as though you were in a mind-altered state. It is found in chocolates, the bloodstreams of lovers, and diet soft drinks. Its similarity to diet pills is probably why some people lose their appetite when they fall in love. I know that. I've done that a couple times. You can't eat. As a special treat, it spikes during orgasm. That's another one. See that? See that, ladies? As a special treat, it spikes during orgasm. It'll have an orgasm. You could be persuaded to fall in love or think that you're in love. Some so savor the rush of PEA, they become love junkies. Addicted to the high. Low levels or a precipitous drop have been proposed as an explanation for love sickness. There is even a certain kind of depression caused by fluctuations in PEA that can be corrected with antidepressants. In other words, you get depressed when it drops. That's like how you get depressed when your lover leaves you. That regulate PEA levels. Estrogen. Estrogen is the Marilyn Monroe in you. It is responsible for a certain softness, both physically and emotionally. Attractiveness to men is enhanced by it. Breasts develop in response to estrogen, which basically endows women with the bodily aspects of sexual appeal. The way a female smells and a woman's sense of smell depends on it. With estrogen flowing, a woman welcomes you into her arms and wants to be penetrated. In other words, it makes you more receptive. It governs it governs her receptive drive and makes her acquiescent to the man moved to pursue her by testosterone. In other words, estrogen receives, testosterone pursues. Testosterone is the young Marlon Brando. Sexual, sensual, alluring, dark with dangerous undertone. Testosterone is responsible for our aggressive sex drive. It makes you want to pursue sex, initiate, dominate. It also stimulates your desire directly, perhaps because it enhances dopamine, a neurotransmitter that is well known to increase sex drive. Interestingly enough, testosterone seems to have more influence on sex drive than on sexual potency or frequency. This is for guys. It is also your hormone, triggering aggression, competitiveness, and even violence. Testy is a fitting term. Testing is too. Without testosterone, wolves don't mark their territory or confront intruders. With it, they fight to protect their turf, take ownership of their mates, and want to be by themselves, howling in the night. When black women are aggressive, they're exhibiting what? Testosterone. That's how come they say black women have more testosterone, because everything things that we're saying about testosterone, about sexual aggressiveness or aggression, period, is actually done what? We've actually talked about what that is. As a potent aphrodisiac for both sexes, testosterone promotes a drive for specific genital sex and orgasm. It comes with some built-in contradictions. Although full of lust, you may become overbearing or irritable and unattractive to the opposite sex. At least it makes you want sex, but it also makes you want to be alone or thoroughly in control of sexual situations. So it specifically promotes masturbation or one-night stands, which is as close to being alone as possible with another person. Testosterone's motto, no emotional entanglements, please. It is fair to say that it causes a compelling sexual urge that spurns relationships, unless they represent a conquest or acquisition of power. Women have Women having considerably less testosterone than men are more receptive to emotional intimacy and less reluctant to commit. Testosterone doubles as an antidepressant, but also makes us, men especially, angry and irritable when it spikes. I do believe when the women go through premenstrual pains, they have an estrogen dump, so their testosterone actually goes up. If I'm not mistaken, I got to check that. Serotonin is your resident schizophrenic, a two-faced friend that can make you sexually demure or sexually aggressive and indiscriminate, depending on whether its levels are high or low. High levels cool your sex drive, low levels intensify it. It qualifies as a neurotransmitter, which means that it helps you transmit signals to your brain from one nerve ending to another. At high levels, serotonin has a sensitive side with a peaceful nature. That's why Prozac makes people feel so good. It boosts your serotonin. It also takes away your sex drive and delays your orgasms. It is so good at doing so, it has become the first drug used to treat premature ejaculation successfully. Aggressiveness toward others and self seem to be restrained by increased serotonin levels. In animals, high levels of serotonin promote selectivity in mates. Same species, basic heterosexual pattern. When serotonin levels are low, however, the effect can be macabre. You may become indiscriminately violent, aggressive, and mean. Low levels in animals induce, along with indiscriminate choice of partner and gender, impulsive behavior, and the compulsion for immediate gratification. In fact, when a drug is given to animals to artificially lower their serotonin levels, they will participate in group sex, violently and frenzied, mounting the same sex or the opposite, often harming, sometimes killing others in the process. Low serotonin levels in humans promotes our responsiveness in addition to our aggressive sex drive. Females tend to have orgasm more quickly, and males ejaculate almost with the speed of light. Given the impact of its fluctuating levels in animals, serotonin may also be involved in our selection of sexual partners and perhaps play a role in our sexual orientation. In other words, when the serotonin goes down, um, you're looking for balance. So basically, whatever processes will get that serotonin back up and into balance, that's what you're going to go for. In other words, if it's sex, if it's food, it's something, your serotonin levels dip actually put you into action. That's what it's supposed to do. See, serotonin diminishes with dieting and may add to that sexy feeling you get as your body image improves. Dopamine dopamine is desire personified, not just for sex, but for the pursuit of any pleasure. It is a neurotransmitter best known for giving us pleasure of all sorts. Without enough dopamine, we flatten out. Feel no joy, no anticipation of pleasure, enthusiasm, excitement, exuberance. Dopamine is the common denominator of most, if not all, addictions. Hmm. Huh. from cocaine to alcohol. It may also be what addicts us to each other. Remember what I was telling you about addiction, especially on the female side? Since its key role is to promote the anticipation of pleasure, it generally increases our sex drive. In the process, it intensifies our experiences and reinforces our desire to have them again. Most importantly, dopamine moves us, literally and figuratively. When we want something, it is dopamine that gets us up into the car or into bed so we get it instead of just sitting around thinking about it. Progesterone. Progesterone is actually a very key factor in fertility. Without progesterone, women will not soften up and actually be able to carry a baby to term. And in fact, women's progesterone levels start dropping at age like 31 or 32. So after the age, especially by the age 35, it's very difficult for women to have baby, not because the estrogen is not there, it's because the progesterone is not there. If I can find, if I can find the chart, I will actually post it. But it's a long time since I've done that video and may not be able to find it. But progesterone is your natural sex offender drug. It kills off your sex drive. It does so primarily by reducing testosterone in both sexes. The synthetic version of progesterone, Provera, is such a potent sex offender that it has been used to chemically castrate child molesters and other sex offenders. Synthetic progesterone also happens to be the major ingredient of Norplant implant and many other contraceptives. So birth control not only prevents you from getting pregnant, it also kills your sex drive, which is probably why black women probably don't like contraceptives. They prefer condoms because contraceptives kill the sex drive. Interesting. Consider the implications for women's libido. Progesterone turns out to have some contraceptive properties not originally intended, like ending your interest in sex altogether. In addition, progesterone decreases positive sexual sense, pheromones in animals, and may even make women smell bad to men, reducing the likelihood of attracting a man that Saturday night. Progesterone is a paradoxical hormone. On one hand, it can make women irritable and aggressive. Irritable toward men and aggressive in protecting their young. In this regard, it has a testosterone-like effect. It can direct its force against a husband or mate as well as an unknown intruder. In the animal kingdom, males often attack or eat their young. It is the maternal reflex, thanks largely to progesterone, that protects them against all dangers, including their fathers. Yet, while causing females to act aggressively, progesterone also makes women nurturing, especially to their offspring. It is known to have mild sedative, anesthetic properties and a calming effect. These apparently contradictory effects may be explained at some future point by deciphering the presence of several different forms of progesterone, each perhaps with its own special features. Prolactin. Prolactin is a gentle hormone associated with nursing. When it increases, as it does with pregnancy and nursing, sex drive diminishes. When men develop abnormally high prolactin levels, they lose their desire and become impotent. When levels are brought back into the normal range, sexual feelings and response return. Dopamine inhibits prolactin, consequently boosting sex drive indirectly. Estrogen gradually increases prolactin secretion, thus diminishing the aggressive sexual drive by default and leaving the receptive sex drive as a woman's primary force. It continues to surprise me that doctors so rarely explain the influence on sex drive of pregnancy and nursing, yet the situation perpetuates itself. In February of 1995, in the prestigious Journal of American Medical Association, a seemingly exhaustive study was reported titled National Assessment of Physicians' Breastfeeding Knowledge, Attitudes, Training, and Experience. There was not one question or comment regarding sex drive. An Australian study concluded that sex drive rebounded after stopping nursing, but it didn't make the connection with prolactin, a correlation that is most well established in other medical conditions. Other than nursing, prolactin rises in response to certain endocrine disorders, prolactin secreting brain tumors and upset stomachs, particularly nausea and vomiting. In both men and women, prolactin secretion is increased by exercise. Surgical or psychological stress, explaining in part why sex drive often decreases due to stress. Stimulation of the nipples and sleep. Amenorrhea, absent menstrual bleeding, is also associated with high prolactin levels. Yeah, in other words, that would make sense. If you have prolactin, then you won't bleed. That stops a woman's period. That makes sense. Vasopressin has been called the monogamy molecule and may well deserve this label. It works closely with testosterone, modulating male sexual behavior, keeping it from reaching extremes or becoming too hot. Level-headed, orderly, perhaps even a little dull would describe this hormone's personality. Vasopressin has a tempering influence. It is involved in temperature regulation in humans and somehow governs or influences hibernation in animals and has some sort of thermoregulatory influence on sex. It also keeps one's temperament from going to extremes. It might even be responsible in some sense for level-headedness. In the same respect, it may mute the intensity of feelings, making your emotional range somewhat more narrow. Vasopressin turns your attention away from the abstract to the concrete and away from the past and the future to the here and now, appearing to improve our memory, cognitive powers, and concentration. Consequently, it is usually an advantage to increase focus and pleasure in lovemaking. These are the key players of the star-studded attraction. You will learn much more intriguing detail about each one chapter by chapter. There is a supporting cast as well, over 30 different characters we know of, like LHRH and growth hormone that influence sex in some way, and whom you will meet from time to time. While each of these substances has its own distinct personality, the magic occurs when they interact with each other, creating the cycles and peaks that alternately distract and engages. Phew, okay. All right, that's the first part. She named quite a few chemicals, quite a few hormones and what they do. And as we go through the book, we're actually going to see what brings these things about, because this is just this first part is just an overview of the major hormones, and she's going to go through, like to say, the next chapter is cycling through life. She's going to go through how these hormones and these chemicals going through your bodies affect your mood, your temperament, what their frequency is, at what time of month or day that these hormones go up and down. They peak because they have daily, weekly, and monthly peaks, and sometimes even yearly peaks. In the next chapter, we're actually going to go through this, because when they peak in combination with other hormones or other situations, they cause our personality to change. That's like I'm a woman in love. Uh, is receptive and that her PEA levels are higher, dopamine levels are high. That's like when a woman gets some good dick and a good man, and she's floating on air because she's on a hormonal and physical and chemical high. And from reading this book and in figuring out how to stir some hormones and suppress others, and what you can feed her, and what to give her and what not to give her. I basically coach a lot of brothers on how to hook a woman and get her addicted. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's very bad. Because some brothers think they want a woman hooked and addicted until they really get her hooked and addicted, and they can't figure out how come she fucking can't leave him alone. So, for the brothers, this is a very seminal book, but it's also dangerous in the wrong hands. So this is probably more valuable for women so they can avoid situations that's actually going to get them in trouble. Because just like a pill or a drug, it's easier not to take it and avoid the situation than try to come down off of it. Okay? But anyway, I'm going to include this one. And I'm going to try to do one of these at least 2 or 3 times a week. I'm not going to make them an hour because that's kind of long. And for this kind of information, I say 30 minutes is about right because the chapters are kind of short. And we're not going to read the supplementary material like her examples. You guys can actually do the examples are actually interesting. If there's an example that will fit, that will actually enhance the text, I will actually read it. If not, I'm probably going to skip most of those. But anyway, that is the introduction in first chapter of The Alchemy of Love and Lust. So ladies, give me some feedback if you like it. Tell me so if you don't like it or something I can do different. Please tell me that also. But with that, I'm going to close this one out. This is BGS out, and I will see you guys on the next one.